Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat on Michigan Business Network. Jeffrey Mosher sitting in for Chris Holman on the road, Traverse City vicinity, CAR MBS, the Center for Automotive Research Management Briefing Seminars, number 58. We're on hand with Karl Klimek, an Emeritus show host, content contributor to the Michigan Business Network for our show that you can still find content of, and that would be Education's Business. Karl, welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat.
Hey, Jeffrey, I appreciate the opportunity, and it's always good to see you and reconnect with Chris and the team. So thanks for the invite.
Tremendous. So let's reflect back. You had a good 3-year run doing content for the network. And what were some of the stories and some of the memorable experiences you had with Education's Business?
Well, Jeffrey, thanks for that opportunity. The real intent of Education's Business was to really find the success stories that were happening out in the education and corporate partnership worlds. A lot of times education was getting sort of the short stick and hearing about things that weren't working. And my intention was, and I think successfully we all achieved, the opportunity to find those unsung heroes who had been very successful in teaching in ways that we know are successful in reaching children and their parents and their communities, etc. So it was a phenomenal time. I wish I could actually do more of it.
And in the intervening time since we've been together, there's been a pandemic. It altered the way that education was served for at least a space of that time. Most are back to in-person. Some are actually still remote learning these days. And what have you seen as trends or impacts in education?
I haven't been really researching the deep impact of the data, but I think the data will play out that obviously it was a rough time to educate anybody, be it adult training, be it corporate functions, be it public schools, charter schools, what have you. I think that data will play out that will have hurt, certainly, and the reason I can pretty much bet on that is because due to the work we had done years ago on how the brain actually functions, we know that we learn best when we're engaged in experience. I mean, directly engaging as many senses as you possibly can. I think the remote learning and so forth was just a patch. It was something we had to do, but I'm really hoping, for the sake of my grandchildren, that the shift away from that occurs more rapidly than not. So it will play out, but again, I think if we all think back to our learning experiences, it was from an experience, learning how to kayak, learning how to, build a model, learning how to launch rockets. Kind of hard to do that just remotely or through the digital screen.
Building models, launching rockets. What's the state of STEM education these days?
Again, I've been out of it for just a little bit. However, I am still very thrilled to know that here in Michigan anyway, the MySTEM organization has been up and running, and they're funded, and they're doing good things with great, very passionate people with great expertise. So that continues to be out there. It was put in place a number of years ago, just before the pandemic, actually. So I'm really, really happy with that. And I think STEM is starting to hook more with the career technical education programs, which of course are all, teach that through a digital phase. Teach someone how to do their HVAC, repair their HVAC system over a screen. You really can't do that very, very well. So I think those are starting to merge, and that really excites me. That now needs to bleed into the standard academic curriculums of writing and history and all of that good fun stuff as well.
As we are here at the management briefing seminars, some of your career colleagues are on site as well today. Give some reflections perhaps on where automotive and industry is going and the irony of education.
Yeah, there are a couple things that are interesting. The one that really took me away is, here we are at a location that annually they look at the impact of these advancing technologies on the automotive industry, transportation safety, et cetera, et cetera. And so here we are using the technology to do better things for the world. And yet, back in the late 90s and early 2000s, the technology arrived that we were able to actually watch our brain learn. And as you know, I've done a lot of work with brain research and helping teachers and parents and myself understand how this thing actually functions and what stimulates it. So we have the technology to watch the brain learn. We now know what it needs. And yet the standardization movement across the country is a direction that's 180 degrees off of what this thing actually needs, your prefrontal cortex in particular. How do you solve problems? How do you assess your emotions? How do you communicate clearly? How do you accept somebody else's point of view? Those sorts of things we now know through the technology on what to do and how to teach, and yet we're stripping our teachers from those opportunities by over-standardizing our approaches to teaching and learning. So I find the irony very, very interesting there.
Speaking to the technology, wait a little bit as far as you care to with artificial intelligence, or is that what you've been alluding to in your last response?
Well, the artificial intelligence, I think, is so new, and I don't know that there's enough understanding of what its impact can be. My tendency from what I've seen is it gets a little scary because, again, here's the technology morphing and creating its world according to it as opposed to us. As I understand it, and I could be way off, and you may take a lot of negative hits on this, but again, the more we drift away from the term hands-on is overused a great deal, but actual engagement of learning, engagement of one another, getting everybody away from doing this and looking each other in the eye and having a conversation, the better we're going to be, because we know that's what this thing needs to become successful.
Karl, thank you so much for spending some time with the Michigan Business Beat today.
It's always my pleasure, Jeffrey. Again, thank you for the invitation, and I look forward to many more engagements with you.
Once again, that's Karl Klimek, a show host and content contributor emeritus with the Michigan Business Network. He used to have the show, and you can find that content on our website for Education's Business. We'll be back with more on the Michigan Business Beat on Michigan Business Network.